This is the most standard Minecraft world. It consists of hundreds of thousands of chunks, and this is one chunk in Minecraft. Its size is just 16 by 16 blocks. I will live here for the next 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore and turn this chunk into this. I will begin my development on this one chunk. I will travel to the Nether to explore new lands and also fight the dragon, build various survival farms and search for the first villagers. I can build anywhere I want, but to make it more interesting, I will be prohibited from placing blocks outside this chunk. Everything I want to build, I must build only here. Day 1, I spawned in one chunk, which I guess was expected. Everything looks quite interesting, and it's already clear that there is everything needed for survival. A beehive, trees, animals, and plants. And of course, the first thing I did was chop down some wood. I also tried to get some wheat seeds. I got one oak sapling and planted it. I crafted a crafting table and my first wooden pickaxe. Then I went to mine some cobblestone to upgrade my tools. I made a stone pickaxe and torches, so mining resources became much more pleasant. After gathering some cobblestone, I decided to solve an important problem, preserving the animals. This is my third attempt at recording this survival, and each time something happened to the animals. One cow died from a cactus, which was quite ridiculous, and the other fell into a ravine. So creating a small pen to protect the animals is very important right now. The first pig was already here, now I just need to bring the rest, but it's a little tricky without bait. To make it easier, I placed stairs, and the animals could climb up them into the pen. And now, all the animals are safe. Day 2, I went to mine cobblestone and iron. I started digging a room 3 blocks high, where I could build something in the future, since there's very little space on the surface. I crafted furnaces and put iron to smelt, also made a few more pickaxes. Mining cobblestone with a stone pickaxe in such quantities is suicidal, but I don't have many options. I dug down to water just out of curiosity and I found diamonds. Well, this might be a record for finding them. Looking for diamonds this way is very convenient. When I returned to the surface, I continued mining cobblestone and expanding the area down below, and then my second tree grew. I made an iron axe and chopped it down. I didn't touch the birch tree because I wanted to preserve the beehive and I wasn't sure how to do that yet. I changed the placement of the sand a little and planted sugarcane wherever I could. Day 3. A few more blocks and a small area below will be ready. I'll explain later what it's for. My inventory was full, so I crafted a chest and moved all the resources there. I planted 3 oak saplings and made several iron pickaxes. I don't have much iron, but mining cobblestone with a stone pickaxe is getting old, and now the room is ready. But there's a problem. The height of 3 blocks isn't enough. It's very little. I need at least 7 blocks. At night, I harvested the first wheat and made bread, but then I realized that I should have fed the cows instead so they could breed. And then a big spruce grew, which is really great. The room is almost ready, and I modified the entrance. I'll be using a ladder, and it only takes up 1 block, which is very efficient. Day 4. It started raining, but I still needed to dig at least 3 more layers of stone, so I got to work. I fed the cows, and they'll breed, which will be great food in the future. And I discovered a problem. I started building the room high up, and I reached a lake, so now whenever I break blocks, sand or gravel falls, and water spills everywhere. But just 1 more layer of stone, and the area will be ready. Day 5. It's time to use the space for its intended purpose. It's going to be a tree farm. On this layer, I'll grow trees, which is very convenient. Each layer I dig, I'll turn into a room and use it for something useful. This way, I can fit everything necessary for survival in just 1 chunk. I managed to fit 9 blocks of dirt with a 3-block gap. I've already planted the first 4 saplings. At the same time, I expanded my farm and grew sugarcane. The first room is completely ready, so it's time to build another one. And here, I found a small lava lake and part of a cave. Then the first tree grew, and then the first phantoms appeared. 3 against 1 isn't very fair, but whatever. Day 6. The amount of sugar cane and wheat is growing, which is great because in the future I'll need a lot of bookshelves for enchanting tools. At this point I decided to dig a bit lower to see what's down there because I kept hearing monster noises, and I really did find a room with monsters, but I'll leave them there for now. At this point I got really hungry, but fortunately there was an apple in the chest. That would have been a very silly way to die. To avoid this happening again, I killed a few cows and got some meat. And cooked steak. It's the perfect food. Now I have plenty of energy to keep working. Day 7. The tree farm is yielding results and working really well. There was a lava source here, and I collected the lava in a bucket, which will definitely come in handy later. I started digging the 3rd layer of stone. This room will be 3 blocks high, which will be enough. And to stop the lava from being in the way, I poured water over it and thought it would be nice to mine the obsidian, but for that I need a diamond pickaxe, and fortunately finding diamonds here is a matter of seconds. Day 8. Now I have a great diamond pickaxe and 12 pieces of obsidian, enough to make a portal. The room is ready, and now it's time to build something in it. In my case, it's going to be a sugar cane farm. I'll need a lot of it for crafting books, and it takes up a lot of space on the surface, so growing it here will be perfect. And now the first layer of the farm is ready, but I decided to make another one. I went up and planted 4 spruce saplings. I harvested some wheat and also expanded my farm, placing a fence to avoid falling into the ravine, and then a very large spruce grew. Night is a great time for chopping trees. Day 9. I went back down, mined some more diamonds, and harvested my first batch of sugarcane. I made a diamond axe because I'm going to need a lot of wood. At night, I went back to mine another room. It's going to be right under the sugarcane farm. And I finally found that I actually enjoy digging it because it's much faster with a diamond pickaxe. This room will also be 3 blocks high. Day 10. And here I discovered another problem. I reached my sugarcane farm, but it can be solved if I place half blocks under the sand and water. But first, I need to completely dismantle the farm and rebuild it. So, first, I placed the half blocks, then poured water on top, added sand, and everything is back to how it was. Now, I can continue digging below. In the meantime, I'm collecting more spruce wood. I needed the bucket with lava, but now I needed it for water. It was raining, and I thought, why not keep the lava below? You'll see soon enough, and here I poured out the water source. Day 11. This time, it's going to be an animal farm. I'll breed them here. I put up a fence and set up the area. Now I need to figure out how to bring the animals down. I started digging an area 3 by 3 blocks, and I found a lake, so I'll have to close it and drain the area inside, and now the makeshift lift is ready. The animals are now safely down. That was surprisingly easy, but I discovered something, and I really didn't understand how it happened. I thought it was just some kind of bug. A few minutes later, I figured it out. It's really strange how it could have happened because of lava that was blocked off. After fixing the situation, I decided to gather some food and leather. Day 12. I placed the sand and sugarcane again, but this is the last time. I broke the animal pen and returned the lake to its rightful place. I harvested the wheat and fed the animals, and they are multiplying. Near the monsters, I broke a block and a bee flew out. I don't know what it was doing here or how it even got here. I made shears and sheared the sheep. I made a bed and slept here for the first time. Day 14. The morning began with chopping down trees. I don't know why I need so much wood, but it won't hurt. I started digging again below. I reached a small cave and mined some iron I found there. I made a portal and went to the Nether. I was curious to see what it was like. It was also one chunk, and it looked really interesting. I broke 2 blocks of the portal to get 3 pieces of obsidian for an enchanting table. When I returned, I moved the chests closer to the portal and stored all my resources. Near the bed, I placed a crafting table and furnaces. While digging, I stumbled upon a cave full of monsters. There was a zombie spawner and chests with resources. Day 14, I continued digging the area. This time, I'm making a mob farm. I figured a source of bones and gunpowder wouldn't hurt. Day 15, and now the room is almost ready. I went down again and found another cave, but this one had the most monsters. I'm being very careful now since I don't have any armor, but I managed and lit up the cave so it wouldn't spawn monsters. I mined all the iron here. Day 16, it's time to start working on the mob farm. I poured water into the corners and observed where it ends. I dug down 2 blocks in the waterless area and poured more water. Now I have a 2x2 block center. This is the spot where all the monsters will fall. So far, things are going quite well. I made 5 hoppers. Iron is really scarce here, but I still have some. I went to the Nether, mined soul sand, and crafted blue fires for the farm. Day 17. A great time to set up the area for collecting all the resources, but I placed half blocks above the fires. I can kill the monsters myself or make the process automatic. I started building platforms on the farm for monster spawns. Of course, I made a lot of trapdoors so that monsters fall down. Everything looks pretty good. I also built a second floor. When everything is ready, I can remove the torches from the spawner and check the farm's functionality. Day 18. The cows are multiplying. Now there are really a lot of them. I went down and saw skeletons and creepers, which means the farm is working. For now, I'll kill them manually because I need experience. I harvested another batch of sugar cane and began preparing for enchanting my tools. Killing monsters is very convenient and safe. After gathering some bones, I sped up the growth of wheat to feed the cows again. I gathered a stack of wheat, and it's already gone. Thanks to my farm, I reached level 30. Day 19. While feeding the cows, I saw a bee that got stuck here. It's not the first time this has happened. I began reducing the animal population since I need a lot of leather. I also started reducing the monster population to get more experience. I crafted my first paper and books, as well as an enchanting table. Of course, there weren't enough bookcases, but it's just the beginning. Day 20. I'm still gathering leather. Only a little more to go before I can enchant my tools. I went down to find lapis lazuli, and here it is, my first enchantment on the pickaxe. I got efficiency and fortune too. Not bad, but it can be better. I mined a few more diamonds to make another pickaxe, and again, fortune 2. But if I combine them together, that would make the perfect pickaxe, but I need iron for that. Day 21. Fortunately, I found the required amount and made an anvil. I also enchanted my sword. The enchantment wasn't great, but oh well. Finally, I combined the 2 pickaxes into one. I now have the best pickaxe in Minecraft, but no armor yet. It's funny. I've survived these 20 days without any armor. Now it's time to mine all the diamonds I find. Day 22. I went back to the mob farm to gather more experience. I need to reach level 30 again to enchant my axe. I also harvested sugarcane. Not sure why I still need it, but I'll keep it. Then I discovered a zombie villager and had an idea to save it. Unfortunately, I couldn't save it this time. Maybe next time. I started digging out the room where I get my experience, and with this pickaxe, it's a pleasure to do. Day 23. I gathered all the mature wheat and replanted it. Then I realized I could have harvested it with the pickaxe, but oh well. While gathering meat, some cows escaped the pen, and I had to fix that. I also enchanted my axe, and now chopping wood will be much faster. Day 24. I thought for a long time whether to make diamond armor or not, since I have very few diamonds left, but I decided to make it. I also tried enchanting the diamond chestplate and worked on improving my resource and experience room. Day 25. I went to the Nether and encountered phantoms. This survival never stops surprising me. How did they even get here? I started mining netherrack but realized I'd quickly break my diamond pickaxe. So I crafted a few stone pickaxes and returned to the Nether. Even with a stone pickaxe, netherrack breaks so quickly, and unlike diamonds, I have plenty of stone. Day 26. I enchanted my pants with protection and unbreaking. At this point, I thought about creating an experience farm. The farm will focus on piglins, which will also give me gold. Once in the Nether, I started digging down and found an area where the Nether Fortress begins. On the first floor, there was a spawner with blaze, and on the second floor, a spawner with magma cubes. There were also a lot of piglins here. On the third floor, I found wither skeletons. In other words, all the mobs you can find in the Nether are in this one chunk. I started killing skeletons and gathered some coal. I crafted some half blocks from cobblestone. Above the first floor, I began breaking blocks and clearing the area. I placed a crafting table and a chest to store all the netherrack. When I broke the first block, I saw the blaze spawner. I wanted to get some blaze rods and prevent blaze from spawning. Day 27. After breaking the floor, blaze began to spawn. I thought torches would stop them, but sadly, that didn't work. I got the idea to make the floor with half blocks, thinking it might help. Carefully, I started placing half blocks one by one, hoping to stay alive. A few times, I was on the brink of death. The half block idea failed, so I started sealing off the spawner to prevent any spawning space for them. Day 28. I went down to the second floor and again agrode the piglins to gather more experience. There was a magma cube spawner here, so I had to fight them too. My task was to reduce the spawn of all mobs so that only piglins would spawn. I started killing magma cubes and, at the same time, began putting down half blocks on the floor. With these, no mob would spawn here. It wasn't very convenient with the magma cubes jumping around, but I kept going. Fortunately, they're slow and I had a little time. Finally, the area was ready. No mobs would spawn here anymore, but on the third floor, I had a party waiting with skeletons. That's when I got my first wither skull. Day 29. I tried to block the skeleton spawner with torches, but of course, that didn't work. They kept spawning. I started covering the floor with half blocks again, hoping it would help. I went lower and started digging out the room for the future piglin farm. I mine netherrack with a stone pickaxe now because I don't want to waste my diamond pickaxe, and I realized I have very few diamonds left. While on the second floor, I got access to the first floor and began closing off the spawner with blocks. Day 30. I reached the first floor and realized that placing blocks would gradually cover parts of the area. This way, over time, I could seal off the entire area to stop blaze from spawning. I gathered nether wart and soul sand blocks. The battle with the blaze for this territory continued. They knew what I was trying to do, so they got angrier. At that point, I ran out of food and returned home to get some carrots and made a golden carrot. This should be enough for now. About half of the first floor is now covered with blocks. I want to maximize the number of piglins that spawn, so I'm focusing on this construction. Day 31, and now there's just a little bit left and the room is completely filled with blocks, and no more blazes can spawn. I started breaking the nether brick blocks and replacing them with slabs so that pigmen and hoglins wouldn't spawn here either. 2 floors are already completely ready. Now I just need to solve the problem with the wither skeletons. Going down below, I saw a crowd of zombified piglins, which means my work paid off. I started digging a 3-block wide chute for the zombified piglins to fall down. Building an experience farm in a single chunk is quite difficult, but I understood that it was possible. I made a small room where all the zombified piglins gather, and that's where I'll kill them to gather experience. Day 32. 1 floor for spawning the zombified piglins wasn't enough, so I made another one below. When I went up, I saw a lot of wither skeletons and zombified piglins. Of course, I started killing them. It was time to cover the floor with slabs so that the piglins wouldn't spawn. This wouldn't stop skeletons, but they don't spawn that often. When I went down again, an army of zombified piglins was waiting for me below. I hit one of the piglins on the platform, and they began falling down on their own. That's how my experience and gold farm will work. From up above, it looked quite amusing. It was very satisfying to watch my experience bar fill up so quickly. Day 33. I started enchanting my armor and tried to get a pickaxe with Fortune 3. After several attempts, I still couldn't get it. My lapis ran out, so I went down to mine more. In this beautiful cave, I encountered an enderman, and after killing it, I got an ender pearl. A very lucky find. I kept searching for those fortune enchantments for my pickaxe, but when I couldn't find them, I enchanted a sword with level 1 enchantments and used books to reset them. I made several books, and now I could reset the enchantments with them and hopefully find something else useful. I went back to the Nether to gather more experience and gold. After killing the zombified piglins, I went up and waited a few minutes for them to spawn again so I could aggro them. Day 34. Meanwhile, the wither skeletons also appeared. I still hadn't solved their spawning problem, though the zombified piglins were still spawning very actively. I spent the rest of the day gathering experience. Day 35. Once again, after gathering 40 levels of experience, I went to my enchanting table. Unfortunately, I still couldn't get fortune. I really need this enchantment for one important task. I'll tell you about that later. I spent the entire day and night back at my experience and gold farm. Day 36. Now, I had 40 levels again, but first, I decided to craft a few more swords so that I could try enchanting each of them, and maybe one would have fortune. And I found it. It was only Fortune 3, but I was incredibly happy. I wanted to combine my sword with the Fortune sword, but for that, I needed more experience. Day 37. I combined the two swords. I stored the gold pieces I had gathered in a chest. I killed all the monsters in the mob farm. I crafted a few ladders and went down. I planned to fight the Ender Dragon, but to activate the portal, I needed Eye of Enders, and to gather the Ender Pearls, I needed this Fortune sword. If I used an ordinary sword, it would take a very long time, but to make Endermen spawn, I had to ensure there were spaces for them to spawn. So, I began digging out an area that was 3 blocks high. This would be where all the monsters would spawn, and maybe, sometimes even Endermen. Day 38. I also began digging out a second room to speed up the process of finding Endermen. When the room was ready, I started placing fences and slabs. This idea came to me by chance. With the fence, I could see all the mobs and kill them very carefully. And so, when I went down there, I saw the first monsters. Everything worked as I planned. I hit a monster, and some of them noticed me and came to the fence. There were monsters on the second floor as well, but no Endermen. When I entered my mob farm, I saw this. There were many spiders that had gathered here and couldn't crawl down. I also started gathering wood because I needed more planks to craft fences and trapdoors. After crafting pressure plates, I placed them in a checkerboard pattern on these platforms. With this setup, spiders wouldn't be able to spawn here, but I noticed that trapdoors were being activated because of them. Well, that's how it works in Minecraft. So I decided to place buttons on the outer blocks, and now the trapdoors would stay in the same position. Of course, mob spawn rates would be reduced, but they would still appear, and I'd get useful resources. I killed the spiders below with a bow and closed the passage to this room. Day 39. While I was working on the changes to the farm, quite a few monsters appeared below, but again, there were no Endermen among them. A few creepers noticed me and exploded, but thanks to my shield I survived. After returning the farm to its original form, I went up again. When I went down, there were quite a few monsters, but no Endermen, unfortunately. I was starting to doubt that this could work. To increase my chances of getting Endermen, I started digging a third room for monster spawns. Day 40. I made a few changes to the design of the upper mob farm. I encountered a zombie villager at the bottom and tried to place it in a boat, but the idea didn't work out. On the last floor, I placed more fences and trapdoors. When I went down, I met my first Enderman. Success! I started killing all the mobs slowly. When only the Enderman was left, I aggroed it and got my first Ender Pearl. Thanks to the fence, killing the Enderman was actually quite easy. When I went down to the next floor, I saw another Enderman. This time, I got 2 Ender Pearls right away. After standing at the top for a few minutes, I went down again, and there was another Enderman waiting for me. This was very exciting. Day 41. While at the animal farm, I saw an Enderman. I killed it, but got nothing. However, it was an interesting find. Of course, another Enderman was waiting for me on the first floor with the other monsters. With all my successes, I now had 7 Ender Pearls. That night, when I went down, I didn't find any Enderman, but I did find a zombie villager. I very carefully placed it in the boat. I wasn't sure why I needed it yet, because unfortunately, I still hadn't found any mushrooms, but at least I had it. Day 42. 2 more pearls, and I now had 10 in total. Just a little bit more, and the long-awaited dragon fight would be possible. I spent the whole day and night waiting for Endermen, but I didn't find any. Day 43. Another Enderman killed, and now I had 12 Ender Pearls, exactly the amount needed to activate the portal. Before going to fight the dragon, I needed to prepare very well. First, I started collecting carrots to craft golden carrots. I also planted carrots in all the beds. I crafted fire charges, took extra blocks to travel in the end, and made fireworks that I would soon need. I started enchanting my bow, hoping for good enchantments, and I found them. It was truly a success. Day 44. The final element in my preparation was a bucket of water. Normally, I never take it with me, but for some reason, I decided to try making those famous water drops. When I arrived at the portal, I activated it, and here I was. Strangely enough, my first attempt with the water trick worked. I had never been into this before, and my past attempts were always failures. Reaching the highest tower, I started destroying all the crystals. Now I could finally focus on fighting the dragon. The ancient beast was defeated, and I won. Of course, this outcome was expected, though fighting the dragon in a world where you only have 1 chunk was something new for me. I threw the Ender Pearl into the portal and ended up on the outer islands. And you know what I realized at that moment? Cities here are the only way to obtain useful items and tools. Unfortunately, I won't be able to get any villagers here, which means trading is closed. Very carefully, I placed blocks and began my journey across the islands in search of the first city. Day 45. And here it is, my first city with a ship. I started by killing shulkers and collecting their shells, and there were the first chests with armor and resources. I also found a pickaxe and a helmet. Day 46. I reached the ship and crafted a few shulker boxes because I had run out of space for storing resources. And of course, I got my first elytra. Now I could fly a bit, and I flew to the first city nearby, but it didn't have a ship. I collected Ender Pearls for lighting and killed more shulkers. Flying in search of more cities, I found another one with a ship, and now I had a second pair of elytra. I'm not sure why I need them, but it was definitely worth coming here for the resources. After finishing my travels, I flew back to the main island and returned home. Day 47. Here are the resources I managed to gather, and now I'm much richer. Using the elytra, I flew around my chunk several times to see how it looked from the outside. I chopped down all the oak trees and gathered sugarcane. I crafted a few golden pickaxes and wanted to find an enchantment for Silk Touch. With it, I could break beehives without damaging them. I wanted to keep them, so I specifically crafted this pickaxe for that purpose. I started fertilizing the carrots with bone meal to speed up their growth, and of course, with the Fortune 3 pickaxe, I harvested them and got many more carrots, enough to last a long time. Day 48. It was a great day to make some major changes to my chunk. First, I started filling up this lake with cobblestone. With my Silk Touch pickaxe, I gathered a few grass blocks for the future, and I collected the rest of the dirt with a shovel. I also broke the fence that was here before. Now, I was gathering the last layer of dirt and stone. I had the idea to build a temporary farm for growing spruce trees. I placed 6 dirt blocks and used bone meal to speed up the growth of the saplings and got 6 very large trees. Day 49, I started chopping down trees. In the future, I have several interesting projects planned that will require a lot of resources, so gathering wood would be a great start. I also also broke the enchanting table and all the sugarcane, as well as the whole farm in general. This was a deliberate decision, and it's temporary. Very soon, I will make major changes to this chunk, so I need clean space. Day 50. I grew 6 more large trees and chopped them down. I spent the entire day and night on this task, and now I have 14 stacks of spruce logs. Day 51. Half of my survival is already behind me, which means it's time to start thinking about major changes to my chunk. I repaired my pickaxe with diamonds. I also used the diamonds I found in the end cities to repair my armor and other tools because they were close to breaking. At the mob farm, I kill all the monsters. Using the leftover coal I found in chests, I made a few torches. On the lowest floor, I find a small zombie villager, and this gives me a very interesting idea. In the Nether, I encounter a phantom, and it's still unclear how it got here through the portal. I crafted a few boats from wood to catch the zombies I need in the future. However, when I returned to the monsters, I couldn't find the little zombie villager anymore. Day 52. I repair the floor and walls damaged by creeper explosions. There were quite a few spiders on the top mob farm, so after breaking the fence, I killed part of them. I expand my storage using chests as the space for storing resources is getting smaller every day. I placed all the dirt I found in a separate chest. At night, I start making changes to the topmost tree farm. I wanted to create a wall made of blocks and fences on each side. By alternating stone fences and spruce logs, I build the wall. I go to the monster farm to check for zombie villagers, but there are none. Of course, all these monsters need to be killed to make space for new ones. Then, suddenly, I fall. Fortunately, there was cobblestone below from a lava source because this could have been my last night in this survival. Day 53. I break blocks above me and try to climb back up. On the second floor of the farm, I spot a zombie villager. A creeper explodes, but the zombie survives, and I have a good chance to save him. Unfortunately, I didn't use that chance, and when the zombie fell to the lower floor, he died from creeper explosions. This is very sad, but I think I will find more zombies I need soon. After such creeper mishaps, I need to rebuild the floor and walls and bring the farm back to normal. I kill all the monsters at night, but still can't find the right zombie villager. Day 54. I place torches on the tree farm walls to make it a bit brighter. I check the mob farm again, and while there are many monsters, they are not what I need. I transfer items from the chests of the old sugarcane farm to my storage. I decide to reduce the number of animals since there are too many, and soon it will be difficult to move them all. I feed the 2 pigs with carrots to maintain their population. I remove the spruce slabs above, which were supporting my sugarcane farm. By the way, I also need to remove the top floor above the animals. Every time new monsters spawn, I go down and check for the right zombie. Day 55. I find a witch on the top farm who has fallen down, and I think this is a great chance to save her and place her in a boat. I used to think that curing villagers here was impossible because there were no mushrooms for brewing the necessary potions. Yes, I knew that I could get the necessary potions from a witch, but this method is very dangerous, especially since I'm playing on hardcore mode with only 1 life. However, I decided to take the plunge. In the evening, I descend to the monsters, and a few creepers explode again. I don't know how many times I've descended to the monsters, but this time I find another zombie villager I need to try and save. I place him in a boat, and now my chances of saving him are much better. I remove the slabs from the back and begin killing the mobs. If a creeper explodes, my zombie villager will be safe. And yes, the creeper exploded. Not just one, but several. I kill the regular zombie with an axe so as not to harm the one sitting nearby. Day 56. I continue the search for another zombie villager. There are only a few cows, sheep, and pigs left on the animal farm, and that's exactly what I need. I gather resources from the chests to build the walls. On the animal floor, I decide to build the walls out of planks. I extend the fence on the front side to prevent animals from falling into the abyss. They really like doing that. Day 57. The morning starts with a pleasant event. I finally find another zombie villager and immediately place him in a boat. I bring them closer together so it's easier to heal them. Once again, I rebuild the walls and floors damaged by creepers. Now I need to transport the witch down to the right place for curing. As it turns out, boats can't pass through 4 blocks, and the witch sits rather awkwardly in the boat. This is probably another trick by the Minecraft developers. They love doing things like this. I decide to break the blocks under the witch, and she falls down immediately, causing the boat to break. When I return, I see that the witch is now sitting with the zombie villager in the boat. I already have 1 golden apple, but I need another one to heal both villagers. My gold supplies have run out, so I head into the Nether to gather more. Day 58. I spend the whole day gathering gold. Day 59. I turn the gold nuggets into gold ingots and then make another golden apple. I go down to the witch and get very close so she can throw me the potion I need. Actually, getting the right potion from her is very difficult, but I learned one important detail. If I stay within 3 blocks of her, it works. As a result, I quickly manage to get the desired effect and immediately give the zombie villagers apples to heal them. I place them in different spots so they don't accidentally bite each other. And just like that, the villager on the left regained his true form, and I was absolutely thrilled. Now that everything is ready, I can continue making changes to my chunk. I lay a cobblestone foundation for the animal farm. Day 60. I realize I don't like cobblestone in this situation, so I need to find a pickaxe with silk touch. I already have an enchanting table and bookshelves. I make 2 diamond pickaxes and enchant them with silk touch on the first try. If this isn't magic or luck, then I don't know what is. I combine the 2 pickaxes to get one with efficiency 5 and silk touch. I go down to the lowest part of the farm and start mining regular stone. I'll need it in large quantities for future builds. After all, smooth stone looks much nicer than cobblestone. I take the first batch of stone to the top storage and go back down to mine more. Day 61. Using my silk touch pickaxe, I break the bookshelves and the enchanting table. I won't need them soon. On the animal farm, I remove the unnecessary cobblestone and replace it with stone. Suddenly, one of the cows decides to dance a bit. She must be very excited about the upcoming changes to her home. On the second layer, I start placing dirt. I also add 2 more layers of dirt in one corner. I lure the animals up with wheat because they were getting in the way of finishing this area. The intermediate result looks like this. I decide to adjust the lower part, made of stone and dirt. At the very top of my chunk, where the nether portal and my storage are located, I begin building walls with stone fences. I decide to remove the portal. It's clearly unnecessary here. I also need to build a roof out of stone above it. Day 62. I build a column upwards and place ladders so I can climb as high as possible. On this floor, I'll make the sugarcane farm that I once built but had to dismantle due to changes in my plans. I go down into the cave to collect water. Using a water bucket, I ascend, and it's very convenient. I spread the water in the right spot, plant sugarcane, and place 2 lanterns on each side. It all looks rather poor. It would be nice to have a small pond in front of the sugarcane to liven up the area. I now plant sugarcane in the new spot near the pond. Behind the wall, I decide to build a small stone hill. Day 63. I add a few slabs and a fence with torches for lighting to the hill. On the tree farm, I gather the leaves. I'll need them for decorative blocks. On the animal farm, I add grass to liven up the area. It would also be nice to add a couple of trees. Yes, I think this looks much better now, and I like it. However, there's a new problem. I need to figure out how to get the villagers to the very top. I plan to create a small village with houses at the top, which is why I've been gathering villagers. Fortunately, they can climb ladders, which will make my task much easier. As they climb, I build a tube near the ladder. The ladder is on the edge, and the villagers could easily fall into the abyss, so I need to secure them by making an enclosed lift. Day 64. I build as high as possible. At the very top, I begin constructing a small platform where the villagers will temporarily live. Building the village and making changes to my chunk will take more than 1 day, so I need to place the villagers in a safe spot. I start from the bottom and place a ladder. As you may remember, I set myself the rule not to build beyond the chunk's limits. Therefore, I had to break the old ladder and and replace it with a column of blocks. When everything is ready, I can move the villagers to their new spot. It's quite difficult to get them to climb up, so I try to use water to do it. One of the villagers gets stuck on the ladder and refuses to go higher. Then, unexpectedly, one of them decides to go up. The other one must have realized he'd be alone and decided to follow the first villager. Both villagers are delivered to their new spot, and now I can demolish the column and place the ladder back in its original position. Day 65. I install a gate next to the ladder for the animals. Meanwhile, the sugarcane on my farm has grown. I transport the necessary blocks to the mob farm and spread water. I mine oak, which will be useful for future builds. At the very bottom, I carefully kill monsters so they don't get in the way of stone mining. As you can guess, I spent the whole night mining stone. Day 66. I find another diamond vein and mine it with a fortune pickaxe. I store the mined stone in chests. It's time to completely dismantle the lower part of the chunk, starting from the base of the mob farm. I made a few shulkers and dyed them blue. Thanks to them, I won't have to run to my storage so often. I put on my elytra and decided to fly around my chunk to see what it looks like now. Honestly, there's nothing special here yet, but give me 30 more days and I'll try to surprise you. First, I decide to remove the cobblestone beyond the chunk. Once, I spilled water on lava, and that's how these columns formed. Day 67. As I said earlier, I need to remove all the unnecessary blocks below my mob farm, so I'm dismantling the floors and walls of the former rooms where I was looking for zombie villagers. I remove the last block and start collecting all the blocks that fell down. I actually had an idea to completely remove the bottom part of the chunk, but it's quite large, and I don't have much time left. I mine dripstone, and now I'm thinking about creating a lava farm. I fly around the chunk again, and I can clearly see its two different halves. My pickaxe has already broken quite a bit, so I repair it, using a few diamonds at the anvil. Day 68. At this point, I come up with an idea that will completely change this chunk beyond recognition. Initially, I planned to make many different floors, each with a farm or specific biome, but now, well, I suggest you simply follow the events and see what happens next. On the animal farm, I decide to remove the walls and replace them with fences. With this design, it won't be a room for animals anymore, but a proper pen with animals, grass, and trees. I remove the roof from the sugarcane farm. Originally, I planned to build another floor here for a carrot or wheat farm, but now everything has changed. With the leftover iron I found in the shulker, I make 4 cauldrons. I place dripstone above the cauldrons and pour a bucket of lava on top. I don't know why I need lava, but it might come in handy someday. Day 69. I gather leaves from the trees again because I've run out of them. By the way, the tree farm needs to be completely dismantled. I thought a lot about how to implement everything and realized that the tree farm can be built a bit higher. So now I'm dismantling the walls and floor. I shear the sheep to get some wool. Day 70. I expand the villagers' platform to place as many beds and profession blocks as possible for breeding. I place composters under the blocks to prevent the villagers from escaping upwards. I now have 2 farmers, which is a great opportunity to feed them and make them breed. I fly around my chunk to plan what to do next. Initially, I planned to dismantle the sugarcane farm as well, so that I would have a completely empty chunk for new builds, but soon I realized I could leave this farm, but with a few changes. I remove the edges of this platform and round them off. Instead of a flat square, it will now be an island, a floating island. This idea came to me by chance. I shrink the pond a bit and replant the sugarcane while placing lanterns. Now under this platform, I need to create the foundation for the island, so the sugarcane farm really looks like a floating island. I place blocks randomly, making them lower and lower. The positioning doesn't matter, as long as they form a sharp point at the bottom of the island. So far, it looks like this. Day 71. I'm slightly adjusting the upper part of the island. The island seemed a bit square to me, so I need to round it off a little. Flying around the chunk, I really like how it looks now. This will be the foundation for the future civilization with floating islands. When I visited the villagers, I found 2 babies. One of them was wearing winter clothes. The thing is, Some blocks in this chunk are in a snowy biome, and it led to this amusing situation. By the way, if anyone is interested in playing on this map, all the useful links can be found in the description. The first island is ready, so I think it's a great excuse to make a few more small islands on top. The second island will also be used for sugarcane. I added a wooden fence at the bottom to shape the sharp part of the island. Nearby, I started building another little island. Day 72. I'm flying around the chunk again to see the changes. I trimmed the sheep to get more wool. At this point, I turned on chunk visibility to make sure I don't accidentally start building outside of it. I have one big island with a sugarcane farm and two small ones above it that complement it perfectly. So now I can start building a new island for another farm. I first lay down the foundation with stone and begin placing dirt at the very top. I added some stairs and water at the right spot. This island will be for growing carrots or wheat. On one side, I decided to add an extra layer of dirt so the island wouldn't be too flat. Of course, I also added a fence around the edges to avoid accidentally falling off. When everything was ready, I planted the first wheat seeds. Day 73. I fly around the chunk to check the build from the outside. I'll be doing this quite often to review the changes and show them to you. After dropping down to the bottom, I built and activated the portal. I had been thinking for a long time about how to travel across these islands. Of course, I have elytra, but if I grow vines here, it would be a great addition to the islands. There are no jungles here, but in the Nether, there are some cool trees with red vines. I added some foliage under the island, and it looked even better. After growing the first vine, I climbed up it. The second vine will be on the higher island, and the third one will lead me to the garden island. I visited the villagers and saw them sleeping peacefully, guarded by the first golem that appeared in this chunk. Day 74. I placed a few archery tables for the villagers to trade emeralds. My elytra are about to break, so I thought it would be a good idea to add mending and unbreaking to them. Once I had enough emeralds, I started looking for the right librarian with the mending book. I spent the whole day searching, but I didn't find one. Day 75. The search for books continues. Every time I place and break lecterns, I refresh the librarian trades. Finally, I found the librarian I needed. For some reason, his books were very cheap. I never figured out why, but I took advantage of it and bought a lot of mending books to cover all my gear. However, I also need a book for unbreaking to improve my elytra. It started raining, and I noticed an interesting effect where it was raining in one spot and snowing nearby. Quite amusing. I got all the books and began applying them to my armor and tools. Of course, after that, I went to my experience and gold farm to repair my elytra, armor, and tools. Day 76. Of course, this farm isn't very efficient since I only have one chunk, but still my tools are in perfect condition again and ready for new tasks. Day 77. I found the first cauldron filled with lava and scooped it up with a bucket. I immediately started building another small island above the wheat island. This one will also grow wheat or carrots. Nearby, I built another small island and managed to grow a large oak tree. I fenced off this island as well. Day 78. I had an idea to create a few islands with trees. They will be decorative, but I can also use them to grow and harvest wood. I added a stone fence, slabs, and stairs to decorate the island. I put a fence around the blocks where the vine grows. I'm not sure why, but I just liked how it looked. Flying around my islands, I can see they've really changed the appearance of the chunk. Using a Fortune 3 pickaxe, I harvested wheat to use for breeding and feeding animals. In its place, I sowed carrots, which will be needed to create golden carrots and breed villagers. To speed things up, I used bone meal. I had to kill a golem since I was running low on iron. Day 79. I gave the villagers some carrots. Before I could leave, they started breeding, and a new golem appeared. Soon, I'll build an iron farm because it will be a big help and provide me with iron for a long time. I made more beds for the future villagers. One of the golems got stuck in blocks, but it didn't seem to bother him. I tried flying around the chunk to see the results of my work. I think it's time to start building another big island. Once the foundation was done, I placed some dirt blocks, planted saplings, and tried to grow them. However, the result wasn't great. The island was too small and the trees didn't look very good. Day 80. Unfortunately, I had to abandon the idea of a big tree island. I decided to tear it down and make it smaller so only one tree could fit. Nearby, I built another small island, so now I have 4 small islands, each with one tree. I made more lanterns and started placing them on the fences. Day 81. Flying around the chunk, I managed to inspect it fully. It's time to build another big island. This one will be for an iron farm. Once the island was ready, I started constructing the farm's foundation out of wood. In a chest, I found a name tag and renamed it. It will come in handy for the future zombie, so it doesn't despawn. No monsters appeared that night, so I began expanding the island temporarily to trap a zombie on it the following night. Day 82. My iron farm is hitting the room with my villagers, which means I need to move the room higher up. Once the platform was ready, I broke all the beds and collected them in a shulker box. I built a ladder to the new platform so the villagers could climb up. As evening fell, I placed the last 2 blocks so the villagers could see the beds and go to sleep. It was quick and convenient, but then phantoms attacked, and I had to fight them off. Suddenly, I found a zombie on the island, which was a perfect opportunity to lure it to the farm and trap it with blocks. To make sure it doesn't despawn, I named it Meet Smiley. Just Smiley. I broke 3 beds at the top, and the villagers immediately went downstairs to sleep on the new beds. To finish the farm, I first had to tear down the old platform for the villagers. Day 83. I replaced the spruce planks with cobblestone. I usually use campfires in such farms, but this time I decided to use lava to prevent the wood from catching fire and my farm evaporating in seconds. I needed to build it from sturdy materials. At the farm, I collected the grown sugarcane to have enough for fireworks. I gathered resources from the chests to finish the iron farm. I placed 3 gates at the edge of the island to prevent water from spilling over and opened them. I placed a chest and 2 hoppers at the bottom. Once everything was ready, I removed the extra part of the island. I started covering the island with buttons so the golems would only spawn inside the farm. I added signs and poured lava. I broke some blocks by the villagers and the first golem appeared. The farm was working, which was great. But I realized that the gates could catch fire from the lava. Suddenly, the golem walked through the blocks. I have more and more questions about Minecraft. Day 84. I replaced the gates with signs and poured new lava, and the farm worked again. I decided to add some foliage to the island because it looked too gray and gloomy. In some places, I placed fences and lanterns, which completely transformed the iron farm island. Below the island, I also added some foliage. Day 85. At the farm, I placed signs on the walls because the golems kept getting stuck in the walls and slowly drifting down. After a few minutes of standing at the farm, I realized that it was now working perfectly, and thanks to the signs, the golem spawns exactly in the center. Now that the iron farm is ready, it's time to think about building a house for the villagers. But first, I need to build another large island. I started with cobblestone columns and added wooden walls. It looks like the usual Minecraft box. I added ladders and slabs at the top. Once I reached the top, I began building the columns for the second floor. Day 86. I built a small balcony inside and added lighting. I also made a staircase to the second floor to give the residents more space. I surrounded the entire island with a fence, and this is what the house looks like now. Honestly, calling it a house is a bit of a stretch. I started constructing a roof made of cobblestone on top. I'm placing spruce stairs along the edges and filling the roof with stone steps inside. Suddenly, phantoms attacked again. I'm making a roof from spruce slabs on the sides. Inside the roof, I'm placing oak planks. I fly around the house to check how it looks from the outside. Day 87. As usual, I decorate the island with leaves, stone fences, and slabs. I decide to fly as far as possible to check the progress of my work. On the second floor, I placed beds and profession blocks. I also added a few lanterns on the roof to make the house brighter. Now that the house is ready and evening has come, it's the perfect time to move the residents into their new home. I put a gate by the fence to keep the residents from falling off. Then I started demolishing this stone box. I created golden carrots from carrots and gold pieces for food. I start collecting the blocks I need for the next island in a shulker box. Day 88. I collect and plant more carrots in my garden to soon have even more residents. At the iron farm level, I begin building another small island, where there will also be a house for the residents. This island is much smaller than the last one, and the house on it will also be small. I built columns for the house from cobblestone and walls from spruce planks. I placed a decorative fence under the stairs. I started constructing the roof from spruce logs. The roof frame is made of spruce stairs. Inside, I'm building the roof with stone blocks and slabs. Day 89. I look at the neighboring house and the residents in it, and I think they must be very happy with their new home. I build a fence along the edge of the island to keep the residents from falling. I place buttons on the island because golems might spawn here, and one of them already has, so I need to push him off. Inside the house, I placed 2 beds and profession tables for the residents. I take the opportunity and, while it's night, move 2 residents into their new house. Under the new island, I put stone fences, stairs, and slabs. I give the residents carrots to continue breeding. Day 90. I fly around my islands. I already have a sugarcane farm, an island with a garden and trees, and islands with houses for the residents. But this is not the end. This chunk looks pretty good, but I still have a few ideas for new buildings. Near the top house, I built a small island and planted a tree for decoration. I'm building these small islands to fill the empty space in the chunk. On the roof, I notice a small resident. He managed to get out through the window, so I built a fence to close it off and managed to herd him back inside. Somehow, a golem appeared on the roof, and I need to check the full blocks in the area. Then I start constructing another island right above the tree. Day 91. I thought it might be a good idea to build 2 islands next to each other, and I'll place another small house on each. Inside one house, I placed cartographer tables, a lantern, and a bed. This house will be very compact. I built a unique roof made of regular stone and stone slabs. There's still one more house on the neighboring island. On this one, I'm building a roof from spruce logs. When the foundation is ready, I demolish the unnecessary stone blocks. Day 92. I build the house frame from spruce planks and stairs, and as usual fill the interior with stone. I added more stairs to the roof base. I decided to make the attic out of cobblestone. I also placed a few lanterns on the roof for decoration. I fly around the chunk to admire my work. No one will live in the last 2 houses. They're just there for decoration. Day 93. I go to the bottom of the chunk and start placing dirt blocks near the portal. Using bone meal, I grow trees and start gathering the leaves with shears. I need the leaves to decorate a few of my last islands. I decided to add some leaves to the roof of one of the houses. I feed the sheep and cows to make them multiply. I don't really need them, but it's nice to have them. It's finally time to start building the last and largest island. I've provided homes for my animals and built houses for the residents, but I can't forget about myself. I also have a storage area at the bottom, but it doesn't really belong there. I light up the island and start covering its upper part. I begin constructing the columns for my house out of cobblestone. Day 94. Under the large island, I place stone fences and stairs. It really does look bigger than the other islands, and the house on it will be large too. I use auxiliary blocks to move under the island and place the leaves where needed. From below, it looks great with the leaves. I built the foundation for the walls from spruce planks. I mark out the future roof and second floor. The second floor walls will be made of cobblestone. I start building the roof and realize I need to add one more block to the frame for it to look even better. Day 95. The first half of the roof is done, and I build the second part the same way. I finished the cobblestone walls and added a fence. Under the roof, I place fences as support. The only thing left is to build the side of the roof. I will make it from spruce planks and slabs. When the house is ready, I start decorating the area and placing dirt blocks. On the first floor, I use stone fences as columns. I also decided to add some slabs to the roof's foundation. I replace the bottom part of the stone columns with stone blocks and place stone stairs. I accidentally found sand in a chest, so I decided to smelt it into glass. Initially, I used fences for windows because I didn't think I had any sand left. Day 96. I check the iron farm, and it's working great. It's very convenient to descend with the elytra. I use the iron to make more lanterns to light up the islands. I place glass panes in the houses and on the top houses. In my house, I made a floor out of oak planks. On the first floor, near the window, I placed a bed and a crafting table. On the second floor, I decided to place an enchantment table. I made more chests from planks and placed them on the second floor. Some are by the wall and others are at the roof's base. Now comes the most boring and tedious part of survival, moving everything into the new chests in my house. I added some leaves inside the house and began transferring everything from the shulkers to the chests. Day 97. I fly around my chunk to inspect all the islands I've built. I continue gathering and transferring resources, which takes up the entire day and night. Day 98. Using bone meal, I grow grass on the island. At the island's base, I added a fence and placed some lanterns. I slowly descend and, in the right spot, plant a vine to climb up. The first vine will lead to one of the resident houses, and now my islands have vines. They make it really convenient to move around and travel across the islands. I collect all the lava from the cauldrons and completely dismantle the lava farm since it's no longer needed here. Day 99. I go to the Nether to repair my tools and armor. After returning to my chunk, I break the portal and decide to build it in my house on the first floor. Day 100. I collect all the resources from the mob farm and move them to shulkers to free up space in the chests. I then place these resources in chests on the second floor of my house for storage. Under my island, I place lanterns. I think it would be nice to have them under each island to make the islands even more beautiful at night. As night falls, I fly around the islands and this chunk, which has been completely transformed over these 100 days. Well, my 100 days of survival in a single Minecraft hardcore chunk are coming to an end. Honestly, it was a bit challenging for me because of the limited space, and I had no idea what to build. Initially, I had the idea of creating different levels and sections, but halfway through the survival, a new idea emerged that completely changed the course of this survival and the look of the chunk. Unfortunately, I hate to disappoint you, but this was the first and last part of this survival. I really don't know what else I could build here. Of course, I still have a chunk in the Nether, but I think I've reached the maximum I could achieve in this survival. Let this survival end here, and these islands remain as they are forever. My name is Simon, and we'll meet again soon.